everyone, to this week's transmission of AASCEND TV, live on the autism spectrum. I'm Keith Halpern, your co-host.
And I'm Will Bernick, also your co-host.
Will, what's your t-shirt? I can't make it out this time.
Well, this episode, I'm wearing my Best Buddies t-shirts. Last week, Best Buddies had their friendship walk, their annual friendship walk last week in Golden Gate Park. We had a big group, a huge turnout. Everyone was there from around the city supporting and walking for Best Buddies. Daria, tell us about your background in the autism community.
Well, I'm going to start a little bit with my education. I have a bachelor's degree in elementary education and music, and then I went on to get my master's and PhD in psychology. It was about my parents knew there was something different about me, but they couldn't quite figure out what it was. And at the age of 40, I was finally diagnosed with autism when my son was diagnosed with autism. I tended to hyper-focus my entire life and follow my passions. So I studied all kinds of holistic health modalities like acupuncture and herbs and Ayurvedic medicine and homeopathy. And then I started a holistic health center. From there, I decided to study for my own kids different educational systems. So I studied Montessori, Waldorf, democratic schools, free schools. Then I went on to, my kids were being arrested on the downtown mall, so I built a skateboard park. And then I started a company called Earthwise when my kids were upset because Bambi was they were clear cutting the forest. I also was president of a college in Sweden because I wanted to research the way they raise their children, which is much different than we do in America. And so what happened is, now that I have all this background, it enables me to find the best solutions for the people that I work with, because no one size fits all, and all of us who are autistic, including my eldest son, have very different needs and very different characteristics. So I found that psychology really didn't help me in this regard. The reason I got into it was because after raising my son, who is very much in the community, everybody loves him. He plays in a band. He's a landscaper and a chef. And parents came to me and said, please do for my son in those days what you did for yours. So what I did was I did a different approach than most people do with regards to autism. I sit down with the whole family. I do medical anthropology, narrative medicine, and functional medicine. And what those three things are is I sit down with the family, I interview everybody, I find out the background, the environmental things that are going on. I even interview not just parents, but also grandparents. And one of the things that I found is about 90% of what happens with autism and how it's manifest are environmental issues. And those are very vast. You can take my class to find out how all the different areas that I work with. But it's, functional medicine is about looking for root causes between the environment, your intestines, the endocrine system and immune system. Narrative medicine is all about interrelationships and the emotions. And so if you, like, for example, when somebody comes to me who's a Christian or Jewish, they have a set of belief systems that I have to work with in order to be able to help them. I work with both verbal and nonverbal people with autism. My youngest client has been 4 years old, and my oldest is 55.
What are some issues you deal with?
Well, there is a vast array. Initially, I started working with just adults because at the age of 19 to 21, they fall off a cliff and there's nothing available for them. One of the things I have is every month I have socials for autistic adults. But the issues that I see a lot of times, parents operate from a certain perspective. For example, they might operate out of feeling guilty. They may operate out of wanting to give their child everything possible. And what happens with that is that they're not helping in order for them to be able to succeed in whatever direction they need. Let's see, I had a young man who came to me at age 21, for example. He was in a fetal position. He didn't speak. He had his head down and he said, all I want to do is die. His parents had allowed him to be in his room, for the most part of his life. And he had no relationships, no friendships, and he was 5'11" and 110 pounds, which is looked like a beanpole. So what I did was I worked with him. You can't just sit in an office working with people. You've got to be there. I am 24/7. They call me once I meet them and I connect with them and they trust me. They're able to call me, text me, or email me 24/7, and I'm there for them because it's really important to be there if you've got a meltdown or whatever happens. The young man I just told you about, he is after 3 years of working with me. He is going to college. He has a job. He works at Food Lion as a cashier talking to people. He has friends all over the world. He has 290,000 followers on YouTube. And he plays at open mic. So, I take people where they are and I bring them wherever they need to go, whatever skills that they have. I had a young man who was 10 years old, for example, who banged his head all the time. His parents both had to work at home. They homeschooled him. He had gone through 42 different therapists. And what I did was I sat in the house and I looked at what were his triggers. I'd sit there for 8 hours a day to determine what the triggers were that were happening to him. And after about 3 months, I was able to help him. After about 3 months, he finally started going to school and was able to function in the classroom without having meltdowns. Everyone is uniquely different and has unique characteristics. Some people have stimming. I have a 13-year-old right now, a young girl who constantly twirls her hair and shakes her hands every time she's talking to people. So, some people have make clicking noises. I had a young man who loved to fart. He thought it was hugely funny. So, everybody comes with a unique set of characteristics and a unique background. And I know there's programs like ABA and all these others that try to fit you into a mold, but it doesn't work. And so that's why I leave people access to me 24/7. I had a young man. He came to me. His parents brought him here from New York. All he wanted to do was to be a chef. He had never watched a program about cooking. He never cooked a day in his life, didn't read magazines, but he just wanted to be a chef. So I started him from the bottom up and I put him in a bakery where he started to do dishwashing. One of the things about him was he had a vile temper. He had no patience for anybody. So I taught him whenever he was going to get mad to walk out the door and call me. And one day he called me and he said, I won't give you the expletives, but he said, these dumb people are putting the cupcakes and the cakes they're taking out of the oven right next to me where I'm spraying the dishes. They're so stupid. And he went on, and I waited for him to calm down. And I gave him a script. And I said, now go back in there and say to them, do you think it's a good idea to put the cakes next to the water? So if I keep doing that over and over and over again and teaching them a script, eventually they get it themselves. Well, the anthropology part comes from the fact that I do an intensive background before I even start working with them. I even interview the siblings, the parents, the grandparents, everybody, even some friends, show up. But it's important for me to know where this person is coming from. I have fathers who say, wave a magic wand and make my child normal. So everybody has different perspectives. I ask the parents to give me 3 things they want to accomplish. And I ask the person I'm working with to give me 3 things they accomplish. Everyone is.
You've really gone into detail about what the issues that your clients and their relatives have faced. Can you go into some detail about what you, in your practices, have you found to be your greatest challenges so far?
Well, there are several issues that are challenging. Number one is the schools. I don't know about anybody else who's on this call, but I hyperfocus, and hyperfocus does not relate well to the infrastructure of schools. The piecemeal cutting up just doesn't, it never worked for me. Secondly, testing. I can remember taking a test, and it would be a multiple choice question, and I'd be on the first one analyzing the different answers, and everybody'd be finished. So the school system is not set up. And for the most part, most of my clients have been pushed through the system, even though they were intelligent, they had a lot of skills. Nobody had the wherewithal. And when I go in to talk to teachers, 9 times out of 10, I might have 5 to 10 professionals from that school who are bombarding me and trying to attack me. I've had them, tell them to take drugs and all kinds of other things. And I'm going, wait a minute, hold on, you don't even understand us. I'll give you an example. I had a young man in Philadelphia, and his father called me. I went into the school district. They had 10 people show up, the guidance counselor, the principal, the vice principal, all of the teachers, and yada, yada. And I listened to all of them speak, and I said, you don't know this child. And I said, you know what? He was at that point, he was a sophomore in high school. And I said, I guarantee you by the time he graduates high school, he's going to be making more money than you, because what they did not get about this young man was he loved to tinker with machines, and he loved taking things apart and putting them back together. And what I did was I guided him towards, I knew there was a niche in the market, and the market niche was there was a need for people in industry to fix the computer machines that were working, in manufacturing. When this kid graduated from high school, he started off at 80,000 a year to start with the high school. And right now, after 4 years, all the different manufacturing companies keep offering him more and more money because they need people who are going to fix those machines because they break down constantly with technology. Another issue that I often come up with is expectations of parents. Especially fathers who think, I'm going to work with them and all of a sudden they're going to be normal, quote unquote. So, and I won't say the disastrous stories to tell, but, parents a lot of times are so wrapped up, for the most part, both parents work, and they're so wrapped up in their own lives, they don't see what's going on with their own child. And it takes an awful lot of time and energy to be able to, I cannot help that autistic person if the family isn't coming along with me. So I can help their behaviors change. And when they go home, they're going to be exactly the same, whatever the issue was, because the parent's reaction is exactly the same as it used to be. So that's why I have to work with the whole family. And oftentimes that's not available. And I can't tell you how many times I have removed a child from their house and sent them to their grandparents in order to be able to work with them. So those are just two of the issues. Another is in the job market. Um, you know, people with autism are, we want to work, we want to be productive members of society, and most of the time, people don't know what their skills actually are. And I belong to 9 chambers of commerce because I want all the business owners in the entire area where I am to know that I will help my client when they get into a job. And so make a relationship with whoever the management is, and I tell them if there's any issues, if there's any problem, if I need to do any training, don't hesitate to call. The young man who came from Taiwan, for example, I put him in, he started working in a nursing home. He worked in the dining hall, and his processing skills are very, very slow. So the chef had a very difficult time because he would ask him to do something and his processing skills were so slow that, the chef got upset because he wants everything to happen yesterday. So what I did was the manager called me and I set it up with the chef that whenever he asked this person to do something, he should text him so that he had it visually rather than had to process it auditorially. So I'm giving you different kinds of examples of the issues that are involved. There are solutions. You just have to be able to get in there and get in the nitty gritty in order to be able to figure out what the most appropriate solutions. The solutions aren't the same for everybody because everybody has unique talents and skills.
We'll now turn to Jennifer Brooks, our book correspondent, who has some questions for our guest.
Yeah. So, Daria, we heard that you have your own TV show. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yes, my TV show is called What Wise Women Want. I actually have a radio show which is called Children Come First, and both of those actually can be seen on my YouTube channel, Dr. Daria Brezinski. And the reason I started my TV show was because I noticed that the women in the community did not know how to promote themselves. So what I would do is have a topic and bring in 4 to 5 women in the community to talk about that topic, autism obviously being one of them. I had female mechanics. I had who were women who were selling cars. I had real estate brokers. And what I did was I started teaching women how to promote themselves on my TV show. Fortunately or unfortunately, once COVID hit, it was like herding cats trying to get people together, 4 to 5 people on a panel because things were in chaos. And what ended up happening was that I moved my show into my classes that I teach. So you can also see on my YouTube channel, my class is that I teach at the college level, which is autism, the causes, characteristics, and the choices we make. And the other class that I teach is school shooters, how to understand school shooters. So, again, being autistic, we hyper focus on different things. And so when the TV show started unraveling during COVID, I had to do something. And so that's the direction it took. Children Come First, my radio show, I have people from, I lectured all over the country. And so I actually even lectured in the United Nations. And so I met people from all over the world who were experts in various things. I even had one of the teachers who was at Columbine after the shooting. The mayor of California, Brown, he was on my show. So we talked about all the different kinds of issues relating to children and their families.
Wow, sounds exciting. And I would be happy to serve on a panel at some point if you feel you can use me.
Absolutely. One of the panels I had was a group of women who were talking about being handicapped in the job market and how they had difficult, especially there were 2 in wheelchairs who had difficulty getting jobs because what people don't understand is, I don't want to talk political, but anyway, there are problems when it comes to being hired, especially if you don't have mobility, and companies don't want to have to pay for building ramps and doing all kinds of things for those because autistics there are also people with autism who have physical disabilities as well. I had a client who was doing data entry for a community college, and they sat him in front of the door where people were coming in and out. He couldn't focus. So all I asked was, please move him to a different location and allow him to wear headsets where he doesn't see people all the time. And his production tripled. So, each area has a solution. And so that's what we tried to do. And thank you for asking about my TV show and my radio show on YouTube.
Actually, I'm wondering if you could discuss a little more about the differences between the obvious physical disabilities, like being in a wheelchair or being deaf or blind, and the unobvious hidden disabilities like autism. People with the first one tend to get infantilized, and we assume they're incapable of doing anything productive or meaningful. And the other one just plain gets ignored.
Well, I'm not sure I mean, I was speaking about people with autism when I was talking about the physical disabilities that are obvious. Um, the other kinds of, I'm not sure I understand your question in terms of the disabilities, because I don't see them that way. And so maybe somebody might tap their pencil or tap their foot or, use clicking noises. I don't know if you see that as in terms of a disability. Also, many people with autism don't look people in the eyes, and I try to explain why. Um, in Because of all the work that I've done, I ask many of my clients why they don't look people in the. It took me till I was about 35, 40 years old to look people in the eye when I spoke to them, and so what I tell people is who don't understand is that many people with autism cannot read body language. They can't read your facial expressions. They can't read your body, what your body is doing. If you've got your arms crossed or your arms down or whatever facial expression. And it's so much easier to process what you are saying if I don't look you in the in if I don't look at you and if I just listen to you, I'm able to process whatever you're saying much better. So it helps to be able to explain people why certain things show up in terms of people, what people will call disability, like not looking people in the eye.
What has been your favorite autism project to work on?
Well, one of the things that I decided to do was the group that I have, the adult group that I have, they meet once a month. And I thought, we just get together at a church and it's a social and they interact with each other. And I thought, well, it would be a great idea to do something. Let's go to the movies together. And so I took 20 of them to the movies, and it was the most hysterical project I've ever worked on because they talked at the screen, they talked to each other, they disrupted the whole place, interacting with each other and with the screen. And so I learned my lesson to never take 20 people with autism to a movie theater again. But it did work. I did afterwards. I took them all to a restaurant, and it was a much better experience.
For our viewers, what is the best way of contacting you, Dr. Brezinski?
You can email me at Daria, Daria, and the rest of it is short for my name, Doc, DOC, DARB.com. So Daria at docdarb.com. And you can also, go to my YouTube channel and watch those television and radio shows. It's Dr. Daria M. Brezinski is the YouTube channel. Oh, also, I forgot. I have a website, autisticaspergers.com.
Hello, everybody. Today, I would like to share a couple events happening Saturday, April 26th. First off, there is a walk for autism called the Red Sea, and it is to celebrate autism awareness, acceptance, and advocacy month, obviously. And this walk will be taking place actually in San Jose, California, and it is at the Plaza de Cesar Chavez, which is the address itself is 1 Paseo de San Antonio. Yes, Antonio. But anyways, that will happen at noon, starting at noon on Saturday, April 26th. The Red Sea Walk for Autism. Saturday, May 3rd, is a spring picnic in Marin, starting at 11:30 a.m. at McNears Beach County Park in San Rafael. There will be cooking, there will be snacks, there'll be barbecue. It is suggested to bring your own water bottles, your own other type of beverages if you'd like. It's wheelchair accessible, bathrooms are available. Again, and one thing that is not allowed are dogs unless they are service dogs. And so donations, you don't have to make them, but they are very gladly accepted. So again, that is a spring picnic in Marin, 11:30 a.m. Saturday, March 3rd. And thank you, and hope you have a lovely day, everybody.
Thank you, Keith, and welcome everybody to the latest edition of the Autism Life on the Spectrum book report. You have just seen a discussion of the science of anthropology. And in that vein, I would like to tell you about a book titled The Pattern Seekers by Simon Baron Cohen. How Autism Drives Human Invention, a 70,000-year history. One of the main questions that anthropology studies is how the human species came to be, and what is it that makes us so different from every other animal, including our closest relatives, the chimpanzees. How come they're not building pyramids and inventing iPhones and making TV shows and all that sort of thing? Well, yes, this is what Simon Baron Cohen is theorizing about in this book, and he argues that it's the existence of what he calls the systemizing mechanism. That means the ability to reason in terms of if and then. To give a simple example is if I attach a sharp pointed rock to a stick and then I throw that stick at an animal, then the stick will puncture the animal and kill the animal, and then I can eat it. Yes, and humans have been inventing things ever since using that very same framework. And he says that there is absolutely no scientific evidence that any other animal has the ability to do that. And although it's theoretically possible that a chimpanzee may one day figure out how to make a spear out of a sharp pointed rock and a stick, it's extremely unlikely, because why haven't they done that already? And another important feature of this book is, yes, it tells us about the difference between a systemizing mind and an empathizing mind. And yes, there is a gender difference. He says that men are more likely to be systemizers and women are more likely to be empathizers, although most people do possess the ability to do both. They would need to in order to survive in society. And that one way we can think of autism is just systemizing on steroids, having a much stronger systemizing mind than you do an empathizing mind, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It can be a very good thing. It could be what allowed the ancient Egyptians to build the pyramids and what allowed our generation to create the technology to produce the video that you're watching right now. And a third important feature of the book is it includes some self-quizzes to determine how strong of an empathizer or a systemizer that you happen to be. And there's also another quiz for autistic traits, which allows you to see, okay, if I tend to be strong on systemizing, do I also have a lot of autistic traits? And if I do, is that really an accident, or could that be by neurological design?
Thank you very much again, Daria. It has been fascinating hearing what you have to say. Incredible benefits for many people here. So everyone, for this week's program, I'm your co-host, Keith Halperin.
I'm also your co-host, Will Burnick.
I'm your cultural correspondent, Stacey Kennedy.
And I'm your book reviewer, Jennifer Brooks.
And I'm Daria Brezinski, and thank you so much for inviting me. It was a real pleasure.
And everyone, until next time, stay well, stay safe.